Today we've got an awesome story of revenge with a 20-year update. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, banned until they pay. I'm part of a small community group and I run activities for literally £5 per person. This one person who always paid suddenly said, "Oh, sorry, I left my wallet at home. Can I pay next week?" I said, "Of course, no problem." They don't come back the next week, so I sent a message. They then say, "Sorry, I don't get paid until next week." What? It's literally £5. I'll give it to you then. It reaches supposed payday for them and I send them another reminder, no response. I talk to the owner of the community group and they talk to them. They say they'll pay ASAP. 2 weeks go by and I send another message. They then send a guilt trip message saying they can't afford to pay me back and they don't know when the next meal is coming from, despite paying the £3 entry fee and coming in with takeaway pizza every week. I give up at this point because it wasn't worth it. 3 weeks after this, I had a meeting with the group as I'm on the committee and it was mentioned. I said they hadn't paid me back for what had conspired, so now they're banned from the group until they pay me back. I imagine I'll never get that money back, but I'm glad they got banned. It kind of seems like a pretty straightforward thing, to be honest, if this guy's still taking part in any of this community group stuff, but also stiffing one of the organizers of some of the events. I don't really know what else they would expect to have happen. And to be fair, if they were actually struggling to that degree, you think they would be a little bit more forthright about it, rather than it being, "Oh, sorry, I can't get you a $5, I don't know when my next meal will be." Stunning Business 441 commented, "It's just weird they were paying before but then stopped. Just because they brought in a pizza doesn't mean they bought it. It could have been an extra box they were given, but maybe not. I'm just saying sometimes there might be other reasons than the first ones we think of. If it's just £5, why be petty? Unless you can't afford it, then you shouldn't lend the money." OP responded saying, "First off, it's not me giving them money to borrow. I provided a service and they agreed to pay the next week, which is now about 2 months ago. If you can't rack up a $5 in 2 months, I don't know what you're doing. My activity sessions are in addition to the general community group. Second off, they come in with the same takeaway pizza from Greg's every week, plus loads of snacks and drinks from Tesco. They don't work at Greg's or Tesco, but they bring in more than £10 worth of food every week, which is double what they owe me. I believe they're studying at the moment and living with parents. Third off, they come in every week and pay entry fee. What they could have done is miss out a week of the community group to use that money to pay me off, but instead they keep coming every week and paying said entry fee. I just cannot understand why they're paying for non-essential equivalent things like the entry fee without paying off debts first. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy awesome stories of revenge, it would be amazing if you left a like or left a review if you're listening to my podcast. That said, our next story is probably traumatized the scammer. Every once in a while, I get a text from an unknown number saying something like, "Hey, do you remember me?" I'll reply with, "Who is this?" They say, "It's Emily, I met you. You forgot me?" One time, the scammer even sent me a picture of a young, pale Asian woman asking me to send them a picture back. I always block and delete, but eventually they text me from a different number. A few weeks ago, I got another scam text. "Hey, how are you? Do you remember me?" I ask, "Who is this?" They say, "It's Amy." I don't respond. 20 minutes later, another text from Amy saying, "I'm meeting up with Tina tomorrow, do you want to come?" I've had enough, so I Google images of the worst hemorrhoids I can find. I send the image of red, blistered, painful, swollen up close you-know-what to Amy and tell her, "No, sorry, I can't make it tomorrow, I have really painful hemorrhoids." Amy never replied back. "Actually, Megan, I can't sit anywhere." I'm sorry, if you know, you know. That's the one thing that immediately popped into my head when I heard this story. I mean, it's certainly one of the tactics of all time to get a scammer to stop messaging you, that's for sure. Rodolfo Teardrop commented, "Ha, I took one of those wrong number people for a long ride talking about how the girl he was pretending to be got me hooked on drugs and initiated me into a satanic cult. He was very determined to tell me about some government program." Sudebate commented, "I'm in month 4 of daily conversation with a scammer. They have yet to even mention the scam. It's weird. We just chat about crap we did that day or our hobbies. I keep dropping hints about how rich I am to get them to try to scam me, but so far nothing." Our next story is Ride My Bumper, Enjoy the Wait. This happened today on my way home. I was driving down a 2-lane highway, 1 lane each direction with a 65-mile-per-hour speed limit. Up ahead was a semi followed by 2 cars, a pickup, and then me. I noticed Mrs. Jerk come up behind me in a white minivan and getting closer than she needed to and was starting to make me uncomfortable. It became obvious she wanted to go faster, but due to oncoming traffic, she couldn't pass. Up ahead, there's a passing zone about 2 miles long. This highway has them every so often to allow faster cars to overtake slower ones, often semis. I started to speed up closer to the pickup in anticipation of passing some of the vehicles in front. The semi, 2 cars, and pickup all pulled into the slow lane, and I sped up closer to 80 miles per hour to get past them all. Mrs. Jerk sped up as well and got right up on my bumper, maybe 5 feet behind me, in obvious anticipation of passing everyone, including me. Cue petty revenge. Did I mention the passing zone was about 2 miles long? As I passed the pickup in 2 cars and got closer to passing the semi, I thought to myself, the passing zone will soon be ending and I wouldn't want to cut off the semi, so I should hang back and be polite and let the semi merge back into the travel lane. So I hung back, close to the semi's bumper, but in the travel lane. Mrs. Jerk threw up her hands behind me in obvious consternation that I wasn't passing the semi, but safety first. Semi pulls into the travel lane ahead of me and I can almost see the steam coming out of her ears. She's still right on my bumper, but my intersection is just a mile or 2 down the road, so I'll put up with it. I turn off and she passes me and gets behind the semi. The best part? The semi was going 60 miles an hour and she had at least 5 miles to go before the next passing zone. Don't be a jerk. Honestly, if I found myself in a situation like that, I would have it pop up into the back of my head, but I don't think I would mess around with cars and angry drivers like that. I mean, you never know when you might be interacting with Mrs. Karen on what could possibly be like the worst day of her life so far. Stephsational XXX commented, I hate people like you. You have no idea why this person needed to pass you. It could have been an emergency and it's not for you to get in the way. That causes more accidents than anything else. Just let people pass you instead of being a butt. I don't get why people need to be first to wherever they're going. Can't let anyone get in front of you. Jeez. Lucky Harmony commented, I used to play stupid games like this until I saw a woman nearly wreck trying to pass me on a debris-littered shoulder after I'd been blocking her tailgating butt from passing for a while. Now I just get out of their way and let them go about their lives. It's not worth causing a crash or a road rage incident just to feel smug about my superior traffic morals or whatever the freak. If I can't let them pass, I just try to mind my business and either hit them with a washer fluid or put up with it until I can find a pullout or a turnoff or a passing lane. Our next story is, you're so busy you're rude? I'm working at early voting for my town for the upcoming election. We're in the final 4 hours after 14 solid days. My specialty is same-day voting registration, which means you've waited all year to register to vote, including the opportunity to do so online, but now it's an emergency. After we get you registered, we get you on a ballot and walk you through the process of filling it out and turning it in. We also handle special voter issues that the regular check-in folk can't. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes to get someone registered and voting. I'm consistently at the 5-minute mark. A woman comes back to us asking if we can correct the registered spelling of her name. Our error, and literally a 30-second effort. I asked the next woman in line if she'd mind if I took care of this, and got the earful. I've been waiting 20 minutes, I don't have the time, just no, in a very rude voice. Cue petty revenge. I ask my partner to handle the woman, and then ask the next woman in line to join me at the other computer. Yes, it goes faster with 2 people, but 1 person can do the job. I walk with the woman the 40 feet to the second computer, quickly fix the error on the other record, and then get this woman registered and voting in about 5 minutes. I then return to the first desk to drop off the registration form and get another customer. I had her completed and the complaining woman was still being worked. She could have been gone 10 minutes ago. I think situations like this is why, if it's available to you, there's a lot of people that are just switching to mail-in voting. And even people who have concerns about mail-in voting being secure, you can still take that ballot physically to the election place and drop it off at any point. I guess the real problem comes from not being registered to begin with. SecureShip3407 commented, "So sad that folks are so apathetic. I started voting during the Vietnam War, and I've always felt it was my duty to participate in such an important event. A lot of people need to wake up, especially now when freedom, choice, and lives are at stake. They don't realize or give a freak about everyone's future, the economy, and the country. Apathy will cause great harm to future generations, civility, and national stability. Our next story is Can't Park? Enjoy the goose chase. I was recently in the parking lot of the big blue box store, and wouldn't you know it, somebody decided their brand new 2024 Volkswagen needs all the room it can get and parks right between two spaces. So, naturally, I leave them a note, but what to say? Learn to park? Read between the lines? No, I went for the psychological damage. Sorry, you can't even see the scrath. Yes, I spelled scratch wrong. Not intentional, but once it happened, I figured it fit the character better. Good luck on the damage search. I was gonna say somebody that parks like that probably is the kind of person that doesn't even care that they're driving around with a massive dent in their car anyways, but then I realized OP said 2024 Volkswagen. They might be a little bit paranoid in trying to find where that scrath is. Right Designer 5399 commented, I was parked in the bank parking lot. I could see the plastic skin of my bumper peeled off as I walked to my car. Another guy came out of the bank when I did. He saw me looking at my car. Turns out he was parking when the idiot backed out and peeled the bumper off when he turned too soon while backing out of the space next to me. I was ticked. I had the vehicle 2 months. He said he saw the whole thing. Told me it's gonna be okay. The guy left a note on my windshield. I opened the note and my jaw dropped. The note said there were too many people around that saw him hit my car. He wrote to say today wasn't my day. He wrote this so people would think he was a stand-up guy, that he was leaving his name and insurance info. He also said tough crap. The other guy that walked out of the bank with me busted up laughing when I handed him the note. He apologized for laughing, but it was too funny. This happened before security cameras were everywhere. It cost me my $1,000 deductible and a hike in my yearly premium. Our next story is, I know you don't know how to make muffins. I work in a cafeteria with a certain coworker on Tuesday and Friday who's newer, and unfortunately she started when I was having health problems and then on vacation, so we didn't get to know each other very well before then. At first, I thought she didn't like me because I was correcting her on how to do stuff and thought I was new like her. But it turns out she just doesn't like listening to someone younger than her. So Friday, as she's getting off her break, I ask her to finish filling the pop coolers. She says she did fill them. I point out there's 3 empty rows and what goes there. She says it's done and goes back in the kitchen. 15 minutes before service starts, she decides, let's talk about it. And she tells me if I think she didn't do a good job, I have to do it myself. This results in me informing our boss what's going on because I'm not dealing with another person half-heartedly doing their job and being expected to babysit them. I'm not a supervisor, by the way. I just have seniority and was supposed to train her. So our boss calls me after the shift is done to sort it out, and during that, I tell her I never got the chance to make muffins. And she says as long as there's enough for the midnight shift, I don't have to make any, and they'll make them in the morning since overtime is a bit slower. The next 2 shifts are overtime, so it's not the normal people working. Midnights was me and another guy, and the Saturday shift was the coworker I got in the argument with and another who worked with me once and told our boss that I took literally 10 drinks from the cooler. It was a bottle of pop and 2 water bottles. We're allowed as much water as we need and 1 pop per shift. Our boss checked the cameras and gave her crap for it, so I know both of these people don't know how to make muffins. I also know day shift customers eat muffins like it's their job to eat muffins and will complain endlessly if there are no muffins. So I said sure thing to not making muffins for day shift and let midnights buy all the ones we had. Not that I could stop them anyways. They could do it themselves. Not the inner backdoor drama of a cafeteria. I think this is pretty simple and straightforward, to be fair. Going into a place, you don't really know the other coworkers all that much, you assume things, and you start making enemies left and right. Nobody's going to be pointing out any flaws you're doing or things you could be doing better. Nobody's going to have your back, especially if you're the kind of person that goes around just lying for no reason, saying OP took 10 drinks. Common Chester commented, "She won't last long. Food service is like a military operation. There is always things that need doing. Lazy people who expect to slide by and slack either run away when they realize how much work is involved, or they get the can. She needs a dull office job." M. The Strange commented, "Ex-military here, and man, food service is nothing like a military operation. Food service scares me. Military operations are a whole lot of hurry up and wait. Yes, even operations can be like that. Sit around and twiddle your thumb for 5 hours, and then maybe an hour of intense ops. Food service sounds like 8 hours of intense action straight, no bueno. Our next story is revenge on his ego. I dated this man for 2 years. I don't want to say he was a narcissist because I know people throw that word all the time. I do believe he had a lot of narcissistic tendencies. Isolated me so I wouldn't talk about his toxic behavior, called me names, kicked me out. Arguments always led to big fights because he would gaslight me, insult me, never wanted to take accountability, would watch me cry and go to bed, starved me, treated me like a servant, give me months of silent treatment, maybe cheated on me because I can't prove otherwise. He was emotionally and psychologically abusive with me. I wasn't a perfect partner, but my intentions toward him were always pure. I give everything to that person for him to crush me mentally like he did. Last thing he said to me is that I will regret and won't find better. After the breakup, I went spiraling. One of my friends has this fake Instagram account of a girl that she's been running for years. About 1 week after the breakup, I asked her to follow my ex account because it was private. He ended up messaging the fake account. Let's name it Julia. Then my friend gave me the idea that we should prank him. So Julia started to flirt back and show some interest. He ended up inviting Julia on a date. Meanwhile, I also took advantage of the situation to ask him subtle questions about his breakup. I asked how long he was single for, and he answered it had been months, but in reality, it had been 1 week. What he was looking for in a woman or partner, said that he wanted a woman with goals, active, down-to-earth, deep conversations, and he can be himself. Thought that was funny because he didn't have real goals, was extremely lazy, couldn't even cook or make himself lunches, would get mad if I cry, was always on his phone, and I had to always ask him if he was still listening to me when I talked. Had zero empathy or emotions. Him being himself would be that his partner accept not even having the bare minimum, getting disrespect and abused. We decided to make the prank in 2 parts. So first, he seemed so desperate for woman attention, it was not hard. The first part was to make him drive downtown to a restaurant that Julia had picked. When he was in front of the restaurant, Julia canceled pretending she had an emergency. We had to make fake proof to make it believable so he wouldn't suspect anything. He believed everything. Julia made it clear that it was going down. The idea of him getting ready for a date, probably going to a pharmacy, etc., and him driving for 30 minutes for absolutely nothing felt so good. The second part is that Julia rescheduled their date 5 days later. During those days, she was dirty talking and hinting many times that it was gonna get hot and steamy so he would be hooked on her. Julia made a real reservation in a restaurant. They were gonna meet there, so my ex arrived at the restaurant and Julia sent him a text that she'll be 10 minutes late, but he should go inside, get the table that was under her name. That's what he did. She then texted him to order her a drink, to really make him believe she was about to come in a few minutes. He sat there all alone with a drink that was not his, waiting for a date that never came. And Julia blocked him and disappeared like she never existed. Why did I do that, would you say? I just needed to remind him that he was not the catch he thought he was. I needed to humble him, make him face reality. I'm curious how many people would say it's better that OP left this completely anonymous, or if the more common sentiment would be it would have been so much better if OP revealed themselves to be like this mastermind behind it. But considering this guy was kind of a monster, really, maybe it's for the best to not give him more ammo to be so hyper fixed on OP. Exotic Passenger 2625 commented, I'd have sent one last message saying, I'm so sorry, but I walked in and saw you and you're so much uglier than your photos. I had to leave before I threw up. Bye. Our next story is Lesson in Quiet. Once worked at a place where management emphasized keeping break rooms under somewhat of noise control. Policy included that for videos, music, and phone calls, we needed either earbuds or earphones, as well as keeping general discussions low. Unfortunately, the break room I used was far from the office area, and we had a group of ladies who would have conversations in Spanish at near shouting levels the entire time. I usually sat about 30 feet away, still sounded like they were yelling right next to me. When asked to keep it down, their attitude was, no one besides us knows what we're saying, so it's fine that we're this loud. So one day I opened up a translation app on my phone and set it on my table where it began translating what they were saying, which ended up being talking trash about the rest of us for the rest of the break room to hear. They tried to complain to management management told them to either take a different break time or be quieter, especially when management came to the break room and saw how far away I'd been with my app still able to hear and translate. Also, didn't help their case that they were temp/holiday workers, and the agency they worked for had insisted us that regular company non-temp workers needed to download translating apps to communicate with temps being sent. Obviously, none of this had anything to do with the language barrier or even what potentially they were saying. It's just you don't want to go to the break room and break out your Funyuns and hear somebody basically screaming across the room the whole time. It actually helps incredibly that they were talking smack though, because it does give you that kind of ammo to get revenge. Kinda crazy 222 commented that he used a translator app and told everyone what they were saying. They said it didn't matter because no one could understand them anyway, but it was originally about volume, not content. Now it's both. Our next story is, oh, you can hear that? I used to live in a really great Art Deco era apartment building that had high ceilings, lots of built-ins, window seats, and terrazzo floors. The neighbors were mostly great and noise wasn't too bad, though certain sounds really resonated on those floors unless area rugs were put down. We had a great D&D campaign going and met up Tuesdays and Fridays. Two guys in particular are important here. Let's call them Mark and Ricardo. Mark was private about his personal life. We didn't know much about him at all. His relationship status, what he did for work, or the usual things one typically knows about one's friends. Just that he was fun as heck and reliable and the kind of guy you like to have at the table. Ricardo, on the other hand, was an open book. He was loud and opinionated, had a different boyfriend every week, drank too much, drove a Mini Cooper even though he was a big dude, and dressed as his TTRPG character sometimes when he went to Applebee's, but he also showed up for long campaigns, so okay. Then Ricardo started trying to out Mark. To everyone we knew, Mark was a closed book about his sexual orientation one way or another. I don't know if he was gay or hetero, but was not interested in Ricardo or his drama regardless. Ricardo would also come on to him in ways that any one of us would consider harassing and rude. Mark was the only one who wasn't lit on fire about this. Rest of us told Ricardo basically to shut up or freak off. Ricardo would then get dramatic and say the stress was making him lose sleep, but kept being a jerk in subtle ways when the rest of us weren't around. Kicking someone off of a long-running campaign is a last resort. Usually you want someone to reform or quit. Friends on the DM. Mark was our DM and he wasn't there yet. Then Ricardo started hearing the noises. See, Ricardo lived right below me. He said it was my high-heeled shoes, but I don't wear high-heeled shoes. I was staying at my boyfriend's house and wasn't home. He even had maintenance check my place and others adjacent and ceilings and such, but nothing was found amiss. He's complained about it, clicking noises, ball bearings at all hours when he was trying to sleep, and loud. He wasn't looking too good. I looked clueless and made sympathy noises. I was studying psychology and suggested he should see his doctor. This went on for about 4 more months. Yet socially inept Ricardo kept being a jerk and Mark kept being chill. Finally, Ricardo surprised us all. He was moving next week. After he vacated his place, I brought the crew up to my apartment, rolled up the rug, throwed down the cat toys, including the homemade and very loud ones. The steel ones that rolled across the floor, the ones that rattled in the little cage things. Watched the cats chase them all over the bare terrazzo floors as they'd been doing for the past nearly 6 months right over Ricardo's place. When I get home, I just pick them up and put the rugs back, and no one knew, while we all had beers. Hey, I think the most important thing here is, at least the cats had fun. See Researcher 7410 commented, as a cat owner and D&D player, I absolutely love this one. Ricardo was a total jerk. You found the perfect way to be rid of him. Nicely done. OP responded saying, thanks, cats just being cats, with me not there. They were, I am certain, reverting to their best predatory nocturnal behavior on those cat toys too. Our next story is petty revenge on an old roommate and her finding out 20 years later. So this was a long time ago, a little after I graduated college. I had just gotten my first job and was looking to move out of my parents' place. My aunt's best friend bought a house for her kids that were going to the very university I got employed at, and they needed roommates to help with the mortgage. It was a split house with a basement suite. I thought I would be moving into the basement with her son and his friends, but upon moving in, I found out I was sharing the upstairs with her daughter. I knew the daughter, Nicole, from high school. She was 2 grades below me and had the reputation of being an uptight snob and a teacher's pet/rat. My aunt insisted she had matured since then, and since I grew up with 3 sisters, it would be fine. The first month was okay, but slowly her true colors started coming out. Started with post-it notes on my bedroom door. Things like, "You're too noisy at night. Can you be a bit quieter? Can you put both toilet seats down?" To bigger things like, "Your girlfriend cannot spend the night. After you shower, do a full clean of the bathroom." She claimed that all boys pee in the shower, so I had to clean it after use with cleaning products. Post-it note on the counter pointing to a single crumb stating that I need to clean up all my messes. She would also throw out any of my food that was in the fridge for more than 3 days, stating that it would spoil her food and ruin her milk. Her milk going sour was always because of my old food, not because she bought a 4-liter jug and it took her a month to finish it. She complained anytime my friends were over that they were loud and messy slobs. Mind you, my friends were only over to pick me up or to meet up before going elsewhere, so they were at the most there for a max of 30 minutes and hung out in my room. Her boyfriend was over all the time with his friends and they would leave half-eaten takeout everywhere. Sometimes they would be there for days at a time, but after they left, it was always my mess or my friend's mess and I had to clean everything up. Oh, and her boyfriend always ate my food and drank my beers, but if I used a bit of one of her condiments, I had to replace the whole thing. Anytime I confronted Nicole or called her out on her BS, she ran off to her room and shut the door. Our rooms shared a wall and she would wait till I fell asleep and then kick, punch the wall and scream for 2 to 3 hours like a lunatic. I brought up her behavior to her mom multiple times, but she never believed me. Nicole would constantly whine to her mom, which resulted in calls from my aunt benching at me about how she did this favor for me and all I needed was to be a good roommate. It got to the point where I told my aunt to pee off and that her best friend's kid was a nut job. She also didn't believe my side of the story. One night, my girlfriend called me in a panic. Her apartment flooded and she needed a place to stay. I told her I could sneak her in for the night, and then the next day we would ask the banshee if she could stay for a bit. My girlfriend accidentally dropped a glass, which woke Nicole up. Nicole didn't know my girlfriend was there that night and assumed it was me, which resulted in her kicking and screaming session. My girlfriend did not stay at my place after that, but she did tell everyone in the 3 classes she shared with Nicole at the university they went to about how much of a psycho she was. This did not improve my living situation, but made everything worse. Shortly after, I broke my rental agreement, losing $500 and the damage deposited because Nicole had a meltdown and punched holes in the walls of her room, which somehow was my fault. I was told by Nicole and her mother I had to do a full cleaning of my room and the bathroom before I moved out. Here was my petty revenge. Since according to her, all boys pee in the shower, I did just that and more. I ticked in her shampoo and conditioner, on her toothbrush, and in her skin lotion. I only told my friends this and eventually my aunt a year later after she brought up how I was a crappy roommate to her best friend's daughter. Thought my aunt would have said something to her friend, but apparently she kept it to herself. Fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, I'm at a pub enjoying drinks with some friends when Nicole and her husband, boyfriend from our time living together, join our group. Nicole's husband apparently works with one of the people at our table. It's been 20 years, so I don't even bring anything up. But because Nicole and her husband are still crappy people, they go into telling everyone how much of an inconsiderate roommate I was 20 years ago, especially since apparently I was a charity case and how Nicole's mom pitied my living situation and let me live there. Most of my friends at the table have known me and have met my family, so they knew they were full of crap. Here's when I told Nicole what I did to her stuff. Even after 20 years, the look of sheer disgust on her face was priceless. They left immediately after that. Edit, I'd completely forgotten about Nicole until she showed up at the pub. I was gonna put it out there and ask, why didn't OP record this screaming, kicking banshee behavior? And then forward it to the aunt to kind of have proof, but then I realized later in the story when they're talking about OP being held liable for the $500 and whatnot, they were never going to believe OP to begin with because that wasn't their priority. OP was always going to be at fault for everything. Also, can we just address the whole all boys pee in the shower thing? I feel like I would be willing to put money down on saying 95% of people all pee in the shower. I mean, it's literally a shower. It's just going to go right down the drain, and then what's gonna follow it? Soap and shampoo. Plus, it's your easy excuse of the day to say you're doing your environmental friendly part. 88 Chunk commented, "She told you that you wouldn't be getting your $500 deposit back because of the holes she punched in the walls? And then you still cleaned everything? Paying $500 to clean someone's mess and getting to put a bit of pee in their shampoo seems hardly worth it." Reddit Judge Referee commented, "Pro tip to all the teens who may not be believed in situations like this, log everything with timestamps and attach with some audio/visual proof. People believe the dude/girl who has all the evidence. I used this to kick a piece of crap out of my friend group a long time ago." But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely awesome revenge story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.